Okay. Module number 13, which means after this, we only have 2 more lectures. Ooh. Yeah. Oh, got a video.
Watch me. Follow me. The victim, he doesn't know what I'm going to do. I just tapped his ass. He's got a PayPass card in his pocket and transactions approved. So be careful.
It can be that easy. That's why they have the RFID shields for your cards. And why you should be careful if you have a smart card. For example, if you're using that to get into a building, because those can be spoofed just like that. This chapter focuses more on assessing the security posture. And of course, with this, it has its own vocab. This starts to become the thing that we turn in order to get paid. So while doing all the security stuff, like enforcing passwords and enabling firewalls and using all these cool tools and methods and whatnot, that's all the fun part. This is how we get paid. So we have to be able to use basic plain English to describe the vulnerability of the infrastructure of the organization, of the system, whatever it is. Here are some basic steps of a basic vulnerability assessment. Would be identifying what assets are we going to talk about, identify the threats that tie into those assets, the vulnerability appraisal, determining the weakness and what we're going to use, how we're going to determine the risk of that vulnerability that we found caused by the threat on the asset, and then how do we mitigate the threat? Because the threats that we identify could pretty much be everything from espionage, extortion, to a hard drive fails, to a meteor falls from the sky, to a power outage, to rats in the line chew up the cables and cause mayhem. All of these can be threats. Now, in order to set up these threats in a way that makes sense to our audience, who is typically not the experts in security, we can make graphs like an attack tree. In this example, we have the stereo. A car stereo is the asset. So then we figure out, okay, so what are ways that can happen that this car stereo can be stolen? Well, somebody could break the glass in the car. Someone could steal the whole car, or they could steal the key. And how could they steal the key? Well, they could either grab the purse.
You should have said anything.
There you go. We grab the purse of the person who has it, or the wallet, or the keychain, or make a copy of it. If you noticed this week, I put out a article about being able to copy a Tesla fob. So if you have a Tesla, that could be a vulnerability. And that could be done with bribing the attendant, blackmail attendant, threatening the attendant, or actually copying out the key itself. Another example of this would be logging into a restricted account. That could be by stealing the password digest file, like the the SAM file in Windows. It could be guessing the password because maybe the person who has this account, this restricted account, is using a stupid password that is known to the world, and we just have to brute force it. Or we could learn it by shoulder surfing, by visiting the site, by however means to find the written password or get it from the user. Once we have those assets identified, we have their threats identified, then we need to align the threats to the impact to our enterprise. We have to say, well, how bad is it? What is the threat, the impact of the threat of a restricted account's password getting stolen? Is that no impact because it wouldn't really affect the organization? Or is it catastrophic? You want to be specific. You want to use common things like colors, like green, yellow, and red. You want to be very clear and very simple when you talk about the impact of the threat on the asset. Because it is so easy to lose people in this. Remember, this is what makes our paycheck appear. So if we're not able to describe this stuff in very simple terms, if we're not able to use layman's terms to explain the severity of the things that we find, we're not going to get paid. So being able to do things like this, taking those threats and putting them in certain buckets to be able to describe how horrible or how not a big problem they are, and being able to explain them is, again, super important. The tools that you'll use are things like port scanners, protocol analyzers, or port scanners like Nmap, protocol analyzers like Wireshark or TCP dump or any of the others, vulnerability scanners, which the one that you will be looking at this week is Nessus, honeypots and honeynets, fake systems or networks to lure attackers to it, to give you a chance to see what's happening without affecting your internal network. You can look on GitHub for tons of those. Banner grabbing tools that will capture server software, version number, the last modification, and other important information that can be used to create both vulnerabilities and also to detect possible threats. Crackers, not the things you eat. Tools to break the security of the system, like rainbow tables and whatnot. And command line tools, ping, netstat, traceroute, nslookup, dig, arp, ipconfig, IP, ifconfig, TCP dump, netcat. All these tools can yield quite an amount of information that can be used to both find the vulnerabilities and also find the threats. These tools can be used both ways. So there's Nmap, Wireshark, Nessus, honeypots, and living up the land with tools that will give you basic info that you can use. Vulnerability scanners will work passively, not attempting to exploit any vulnerabilities. These scanners can also point out any misconfigurations or missing security controls to a system. The two main methods these scanners work is intrusive, attempting to perform simulated attacks, and non-intrusive, using information available to hypothesize the status of a vulnerability. Scanners can also use credentials to log in and perform tests. You will work in this through the Nessus certificate of proficiency, which I'll explain in a bit. There is also pen testing, relying on the skill, knowledge, and cunning of the tester against a system. Pen testers can be internal or external hired professionals. Pen testers use one of the three main techniques, the black box, the gray box, or the white box technique. In black and gray box, the pen tester has to get preliminary information before launching an attack, known as open source intelligence. This can be searching online, like passive reconnaissance, or probing the system for information, which is active reconnaissance. With proper tools and sensors, active reconnaissance can be detected. And all this is covered in my CIS 76 course. And that's kind of like a segue into that as a next class from this. Besides the need to keep private data secure from theft, you also have to think of the legal and compliance reasons to do so. For example, if your organization deals with medical, you must follow HIPAA's rules. If you are in retail or deal with credit cards, PCI DSS is what you need to know. In any case, creating a security posture that baselines your current configuration, monitors progress, and remediates any issues is critical for compliance with local, state, and federal laws. A number of those laws will say you have to do a vulnerability test. You have to do a pen test. You have to do a certain amount of things to ensure your level of security. Depending on your organization, depending on your business, will depend on what laws you have to follow. Some of these laws even regulate how data is to be destroyed. For the most part, using tools like DBAN's boot and nuke will be more than enough. But if you're dealing with sensitive data, you may need to DGOS the hard drive. And in cases of secret and top secret level, you'll need to get the drives defensively destroyed, obtaining a certificate from an authorized company that the device is in no way recoverable. In other words, if depending on what you're working with, will depend on how you got to get rid of storage. Because eventually hard drives will die. And if the contents in the hard drives were of secret or top secret level, you may need to go and get the drives defensively destroyed, which could mean like melting the metal. It could mean taking it through a shredder. Or if it's just a standard drive that never had anything sensitive, a simple secure wipe would be more than enough. All depends on what you're working with. All depends on what laws apply to you. All depends on the threat. Because if a drive gets legs and walks out of your organization, what is the threat of that? Well, if it's on a server, it could be top secret. Or if it's on an endpoint station, it might not be. All these things have to be factored into your overall picture of your assessments of the threats and vulnerabilities and how that will impact the organization at large. Any questions? Looking around. Okay. Let's grab these files and move them over. And make a new share. Oh, I did the YouTube video. Wrong share. This one. Now we got the right one. Okay. Your lab, I know that it's Thanksgiving week, so you probably won't do much. Trust me, I am already feeling the same. There is only one thing to do besides the quiz, and that is the Tenable University's Nessus course. Your goal is to get the certificate of proficiency. Now, if you have taken any of my classes before and you've already done this, you don't need to do it again. Just slap in the PDF and you're good to go. If you've never done this before, it is a series of videos to watch. There aren't labs to do. It is definitely more of watching, and then at the end there's a test to take. Learning Nessus is a good tool to have in your toolbox. The free version handles perfectly fine for what you need to learn. I don't think you need to purchase the Nessus itself, but it's definitely a good tool to have in your belt to understand how it works, to understand the information that it tells you, because you would need to use it or a tool like it in order to get the information you need to create those reports that would explain the assets, their threats, their vulnerabilities, and their impact. It does a great job of working with HIPAA compliance, for example, if you needed it, or PCI compliance. It's quite a versatile tool, and it is available for you to dive in and learn. So again, the only thing you need to do this week besides the quiz is go through Tenables University, specifically the Certificate of Proficiency. Any questions on the lab?
I have a question.
Yes.
Just really quick, on a professional, I guess, environment, do they use Nessus a lot?
Nessus is one of the tools that are used often, yes.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? Cool. As always, if you do come up with any others, feel free to reach me out on Discord. Otherwise, have a great Thanksgiving.